Yo, what's up guys? Imagine Create Destroy here. In today's video, I'm going to be making an underground cave with a wizard fighting a swamp creature. Alright, let's get started y'all. For the first step of the build, I'm going to just glue some XPS foam together, that way I can carve out the lake portion from later. Once I've hot glued the pieces together, I use some books to weigh it down while it dries, that way it doesn't pull apart when it's drying. I'll use the little bit of strength I do have to push it together, just to reduce any gaps that may form. I chose to make the back half hollow since I won't be carving it out, just to save a little bit on material there. After I glued on the walls and added some foam to the back so I can give it some depth, we want to make sure this build's got some curves. Nobody likes a flat diorama. Now that everything is glued into place, we can bust out the trusty hot foam cutter to cut some foam with some heat. Now if you're anything like me, you might see smoke and want to inhale it, but trust me, this won't make you feel good. It'll just send you to an early grave. Be careful. Once I've carved out a bit for the resin lake I'm going to pour later, we'll just mess with the placement of these real looking fake rocks until I find a natural placement for them. Next I mixed up a paint, Mod Podge and plaster mix just to coat the build. I made sure to make this thick enough to fill any gaps, but not too thick just so I don't cover up any of the fine details I made in this build. Now I'll glue on the top to make this K and Ave. After that's securely secured, I'll cut a hole in the top for a cave entrance. Since a Mod Podge plaster paint mix, say that 5 times fast, Jesus, acts as a base coat, I can save myself from having to touch grass and go outside. For the painting, I kept it pretty simple with some blues and purples, and a pale yellow to act as sunlight coming in from the cave entrance. I realized the top was kinda in the way since I haven't dry brushed it yet, so I not so carefully removed it. It's okay, I'll worry about that later. I used a suede craft paint to dry brush just to bring out the raised edges and give the piece a little life. Normally I do all the mini painting after the build is done, but I need these to go into the resin pour, so I'll get to work on them now. While I'm painting them up, we'll get into the backstory for this build. This druid is looking for an ancient stone. A stone of pure pleasure. Stone of burning that when burned emits a smell that rivals the smell of fresh rainfall, or the smell of salt water on a foggy summer morning. This mission set upon by a druid that was graced by the smell when he was a young child, still living with his mother. And since the moment his mother died, he has wanted nothing more than to be brought back in time, to when he was young. He believes the sense of smell is a magic like no other that will let you travel in the mind to moments of pure bliss. It has been 40 years of searching, but he thinks he's finally found the last resting place of the last Nidor stone. What he didn't know was the creature of this cave has been protecting this stone for the last 40 years, using the stone to burn during the sacrificial ritual of any man that enters her cave, decorating her swamp with the skulls of men that dared seek out the Nidor stone. Whether it was for financial gain, or for the pleasure of the senses, like our druid friend here. Will this be his or the beast's last day on earth, or will he finally be transported back in time to visit his mother's warm home through his senses? I had a lot of extra time waiting for some things I needed for this build, so I took my time painting the swamp monster, which I think ended up coming out amazing. It is crazy to think that this one mini took over 18 colors just to finish. But anyway, after I finished her, I prepped the area for the resin pour, coated the hole with some gloss Mod Podge just to seal any potential holes in there to prevent any resin leaks. Then I glued the minis into place, and we'll move on to the last step for the prep of the resin pour. For the last step, I cut out a piece of acrylic that I messed up measuring, so I double checked the measurements and cut out a second piece that I also messed up. But that's okay, third time's a charm. You know what they say, 2 wrongs don't make a right, but I guess in this case it does, so whoever said that is wrong. That's okay, one more wrong and they'll be right. First I used silicone caulk, which Saying out loud doesn't sound very PG. Whoever came up with the name for this stuff is a sicko. Should definitely put them on some kind of watch list. They're also a liar because it said water ready in 4 hours and it leaked everywhere when I tested it. So I ended up using hot glue to seal it, which worked great. Moving on to the resin pour, I used a brown and green to get that nice swamp effect, but ended up not using enough. I wanted the water to be a little darker in the end result, but it still came out alright. When I poured it, there was a lot of micro bubbles. I just banged it on the table to help them rise, and then I popped them once I came to the surface with my blowtorch. Since this is a druid fighting a swamp monster, I wanted to keep the fantasy theme going, so I used a fantasy mushroom and painted them in nice vibrant colors. I think they really helped fill the empty space in the cave and brought some awesome detail here. These rabbits were kind of a random purchase because I thought they were cute, but I think they'll fit nicely with this build. I kept the painting simple with a tan base coat and a brown dry brush, then a pale pink for the ears and black for the eyes. The wizard was super fun to paint. I just ended up looking up some pics of wizards for inspiration and found some good ones with blues and grays for the clothes, which I thought looked really cool. But I didn't end up having the exact colors, but that's okay. Just remember, you don't have to copy the colors exactly. They can be close and it'll come out amazing. I used blue gray and a gray for the clothes and light tans for the skin. Now what's a hero without a sidekick? So I found this resin printed dog on Green Stuff World's website that I decided would go perfectly with this build. I used a goldish tan and dry brushed with an off-white. Before we glue the minis into place, I tried taking the acrylic off that held back the resin, which was super hard to get off. Got myself pretty bad here, so do be careful there, guys. Took the acrylic off camera because I just couldn't get a good angle and it was so stuck on there. After I did that, I started gluing down the minis, which really helped fill the empty space and I think brought the whole build together. For whatever reason, the super glue wasn't drying very fast, so enjoy these clips of me struggling to put this shroomy into place. Last thing I did for the cave was add a moss tuft by gamer grass growing out of the swamp, and we'll call it good for the inside of the cave and we'll move on to the upper level of the build. I wanted to make a winding path to the entrance of the cave, so I used my static grass applicator and a short grass for the path, and later I'll add some longer grass and various grass tufts on the outside of the path just to give it some depth. To secure the grass to the diorama, I use a dark earth texture paste. This does two things. It holds the grass into place, but most importantly, it makes the build more realistic because you get that nice ground texture under the grass. Before I glue the longer grass on the outside of the path into place, I'm going to glue some plaster rocks I made off camera down. I do this before I glue the rest of the grass into place just because it'll be easier and I don't have to worry about getting paint on the grass itself. Before I glue the rocks down, I mess with the placement until it looks good. Then I'll come through with a Mod Podge paint mix. This helps stick them to the build better and acts as like a base coat that I can paint over after. When it comes to painting rocks, there's a ton of different options you can use, but my laziness took over, so I used the simplest one. A couple grays, and then a light tan, then an off-white dry brush. Typically before the dry brush, I'll do a black wash, but I forgot. Yeah, we're not all perfect, right? I forgot to hit record while I added the longer grass on the outside of the path. Oops. Look at me, back-to-back mistakes. Killing it on this build. Okay, now that I've finished messing things up, I'll glue down the little bunny family I painted, and we'll finish placing the last grass tufts. Remember, the more the merrier when it comes to these grass tufts. I use a lot and a ton of different sizes. It really helps bring variety and more realism to your builds as well. I'll also make sure to use a lot of different colors. It'll help bring more depth to the build as well. Lastly, I'm going to cover the gaps between the rocks and the base here, just due to my poor building quality. To cover the gaps in the XPS foam, I'm going to glue down some thin cardboard. Cereal boxes work perfectly for this step. And last but not least, we'll paint the sides black and we'll call another build done. Alright, let's get into the beauty shots. Thank you so much, everybody, for watching. I'll catch y'all in the next one. Please like, comment, and subscribe. It really helps out the channel, and I appreciate it. Have a good one, y'all.